Good morning, and welcome to another inspiring episode of the Good Morning Minute, where we start the day with purpose, passion, and a little bit of power. I'm your host, Angelina Mojica, and today's conversation is part of our special series in partnership with the Empower Her Steps virtual conference, a movement rooted in helping women rise, heal, and walk boldly into the life God designed for them. Our mission is simple but powerful, empowering life purpose, because we believe when a woman finds clarity in her calling, everything changes for her family, her community, and generations to come. So friends, grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and get ready to be uplifted as we dive into real stories, honest lessons, and bold steps towards purpose with our guest today. And our guest today is Sam. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yes. And so, Sam, I'd like to just take a moment for you to share a little bit about yourself to our listeners.
Okay, so my name is Sam, and I am an endometriosis coach. I live in the UK with my husband and my two girls. And previously, I've also been an accountant, so had a mix of careers, and that's a good short summary.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking interest in the podcast and showing up today. I appreciate it. Uh, before we get started, I'd like to just start with a icebreaker question, just something fun, something easy. Are you more of a sunrise or sunset person?
Definitely a sunset person. Mornings are much more of a challenge, whereas evenings I'm much more fired up and brains alive more in the evening for sure.
Wonderful. I can relate with you because I'm definitely a sunset person. I feel more energized. I feel like I can get to a place where things are calmed down enough for me to really focus in on the things that I want to work on. So I definitely understand that. All right. Well, let's just jump into the heart of our conversation, Sam. And I'm going to ask you, what was a defining moment of pain or challenge in your life, and how did it impact you?
Mm. So I was diagnosed with endometriosis in my early 20s and suffered with it for quite a few years. Had a lot of dismissal from doctors and friends, family, you name it. It's a classic hidden disease in lots of ways that affects so many parts of us. And I suffered with it for a very, very long time. Tried millions of different options and didn't seem to be getting any relief really. I'd had multiple surgeries that would give me relief for a while, but only for a while, and then it would come back full force and set me right back to the start again. And being somewhat of a geeky person in nature and personality, having gone through this continuous cycle of not really getting much support and help, I tried to take things into my own hands. I spent quite a few years researching the absolute what's it out of this disease, and came across a book that I tried some of the things from, which was talking about some things like diet and things you can try that are in line with your cycle and a few different things like that. And that was making a difference and helping. Then, but only again to a certain degree. And then the thing that was the biggest impact moment, I then had gone to a personal development retreat, not actually intending it to be anything to do with my endometriosis at all. It was simply because I knew I had some challenges from my past that were, showing up on my day to day, and I wanted to deal with them. And it was 4 days after a laparoscopy surgery. So the doctors, if they knew I was going to this retreat, would most definitely have told me not to go. I was on crutches. I was in a lot of pain. I doubled up, could barely move, quite frankly. But as well, I'm incredibly stubborn, and I had booked this retreat, and I was going to go regardless. So I did. And it was a 3-day retreat. The first day was particularly challenging because of how much pain I was in. Even though the organisers had tried to accommodate me as much as possible, when other people were doing things that were standing or milling about, I had my own chair to sit on, a little table to put things on, all this kind of stuff. They'd really tried to accommodate. But ultimately, the design of the retreat meant that the first day was a lot about digging up your stuff around what the topic of the retreat was about. And this particular retreat was about wealth. And a lot of the exercises and things that the other participants were doing, I just physically could not do, as much as they tried to accommodate me. And realistically, I was in so much pain, having literally just had surgery 4 days before, that my mind wasn't even entirely with it. There was a part of me that effectively was just counting down the seconds until I could take some more painkillers, because that was basically the entirety of my focus. And then in the evening, this retreat had tended to have a somatic workshop of some kind in the evening on the first day. And this particular time, the workshop was a dynamic meditation. I don't know if you've ever heard of a dynamic meditation at all. So when people think of meditation, they think of, the eyes closed, sitting there quietly, someone talks and takes you on a journey, right? That's what we all think of. But a dynamic meditation is that you move and, in fact, don't stop moving. And it then helps you process any emotions that are stuck in your body, because you're moving around. It might be jumping up and down. It might be, if you're processing anger, you might, punch a pillow. Or if you're processing grief, you might cry, like wailing cry. Like, it's very, very active, hence dynamic in the name. And I'd done one of these before, and they're incredibly good. But there I was, this particular retreat, unable to move, essentially, in what is a 90-minute non-stop movement workshop. So everyone around me is, doing their thing, jumping up and down, screaming, crying, punching pillows, all this, letting out their stuff. And I can barely move, just a few millimeters, just slightly rocking side to side, a few millimeters. And that's all I could do. And I remember that gut-wrenching, like, oh gosh, this is just what my life is now. Missing out on stuff all the time, not able to participate in things that I want to do because of this damn disease, and like, oh gosh, it felt so all-consuming in that moment, and that I was missing out on something I'd looked forward to so much. And as I was sat there in this chair with my eyes closed, I almost had this kind of it was this sort of like strange moment. It was almost like a half dreamy state came over me, and I imagined viewing this room from the outside, like an outsider looking in. And the contrast of all these people who were, big, bold movements jumping up around, and me with my barely moving at all. Something about the scene made me just really laugh, because in any other situation, the people around me would look quite odd. But in this particular moment, I was the odd one out. I was the one that didn't quite fit. I was the one who seemed to be acting bizarre in comparison to everyone else. And so the way that I pictured it, it made me just laugh hysterically, and then laugh some more and more and more again. And I basically spent pretty much an entire hour just crying with laughter. And then, the workshop ended. Off I went up to bed and didn't think much more of it. And then the next day when I woke up, I was a different person. I'd practically jumped out of bed. I'd, skipped off to get ready and have breakfast. And I was like, what the hell on earth's going on here? Didn't need my crutches. I was like, what on earth's going on here? And happened to talk to the lady who'd run a retreat, and said, like, all I did was laugh. I didn't do all the things that, everybody else normally does. And she was like, well, it's clearly shifted something. And throughout that entire day, all I kept feeling was more and more energized and more different. And the physical pain that I'd gone through, as well as the emotional turmoil as well, was just lifted. And that lasted for days afterwards. And I mean, I remember the huge contrast between how I'd been the day before, that one of the other participants had come up to me and double checked whether, she was like, I don't mean to be rude, but were you really telling the truth that you only had surgery 4 days ago? Because I can't believe this version of you that I see right now could have. And yeah, it lasted a few days. And then again, that's where the inner geek in me sort of came out, and I wanted to know, like, what on earth has happened? What is it in that moment had changed something that was so physical and emotional just by effectively just laughing? And that sent me on a whole journey of looking how the mind-body link and how disease and chronic illness has that link, that whole body, especially as women, not only, but especially as women, that whole body link between every part of us, that one part can influence the other. And it's from there that I then built my business around helping other women with endometriosis have that same whole body shift that then also changes how their illness shows up.
Oh, wow. Man, I'm just enthralled in your story. I'm just like, oh my gosh, so speechless. Wow. Um, and so just for the listeners, can you kind of give just a brief explanation about the disease endometriosis? Sorry, I didn't say it right.
Oh, it's okay. So endometriosis, often abbreviated to endo, is a disease where cells that are similar to the lining of the womb end up somewhere else in the body. And because of the nature of these cells being similar to the womb, they then respond to the same hormonal patterns that go on for a woman with her cycle. So what that means is where these cells are living somewhere they're not supposed to be, but they're reacting with that cycle, they're also then trying to shed and things like that. So it can cause huge amounts of pain. It can cause massive infertility, as well as it has links with autoimmune conditions, and it's incredibly unpleasant, and it causes organs to move in the body and stick to where they're not supposed to be, as well as hormone spikes that are unnatural because of the way it makes its own estrogen. So there's a whole host of things that can be caused by it, and it affects 1 in 10 women in terms of how many are diagnosed with it.
Wow.
But the actual amount that suffer is probably a lot more because it takes so long to get diagnosed, because the only way to get a true diagnosis is to have a surgery with a specialist. So it does take, on average at the moment, 8 years, 10 months to get diagnosed.
Wow.
So they reckon it's probably closer to 1 in 7 who actually suffer.
Wow. And here you are, 8 to 10 years trying to get diagnosed and suffering through all of the pain, and then you go to this retreat after your surgery, and you discover something. And it's true, because I work with children in the welfare system, and so I work also with families that have done that too. But when trauma relates to the body, like there is things that the body does hold on to, and so we're starting to hear a lot more of that nowadays, and as psychology and counseling and all of those things start to really evolve and be more accepted in the world. We're hearing about that, how the body keeps the score and whatnot. So for you, Sam, the first step was this experience that you had at this retreat. What were the other steps as you're getting ready to turn this challenging moment into a life calling for yourself, helping other women and building a business? What were some of the other steps that helped you kind of grow and heal? I know you said research, but no, let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, of course. So actually, there's quite a few years between that moment and when I then actually had started the business itself, certainly in terms of getting it out there wider. So the very first thing I did was like a sort of experiment to myself, which sounds a bit bizarre, but essentially that's what I did, because I'd felt like I discovered this secret that endometriosis is, along with a lot of gynae conditions, are so under-researched that there just is nowhere near enough research out there. So even though I was digging into trying to find as much as I could, there really wasn't a lot. But I'd recognized this huge shift that had happened for me and thought, it can't just have been a freaky coincidence, right? So I started experimenting through my own healing journey on some of my own trauma and challenges from the past, but also then as I was talking to friends and family, I'd sort of start with their permission, experimenting with them too. Like, if we do this thing, can you let me know what happens differently on your next cycle, or how your mood shows up and how that affects it? Like, so I got them to kind of, I asked them a load of questions to kind of test what was happening. And I started to notice as the years gone through that the things that I was noticing for myself were happening for other people. And one of the early people I worked with, she had been told for years that she was infertile and would never have kids. Then, we'd done some work together, and she sends me a pregnancy test, and that was one of my first, not my only one I've received with them. That happens with clients, but that was my first one, and that was in the experiment phase, and it was so heartwarming, having also been able to help my own fertility. Seeing that was like, it was just the icing on the cake. So there was a lot of experimenting for quite some time, and I really felt the calling part of it. You'd use that word, and that was so much the case. Even to the point where there was a place where I felt this calling to go and do this and share this as a business. But it was at a time when financially I wasn't entirely stable, and also I was full-time in an accountancy career that I could never see a way of getting out of, especially because I'd got quite high up in the accountancy space. I'm like, well, why would I leave this all for starting a business? Gosh, I must be crazy. And so I actually remember one of the times I'd had this calling moment, almost saying to the universe, like, actually, can you give this to somebody else? Because I just can't do this. And I remember almost having that conversation with the universe, like, gosh, am I really the person you want to be giving this to? And so I'd put it off for a long time as doing as a business. And, through this time I'd been constantly working on myself, and I'd sort of then started it as a little bit of a hobby business, just, word of mouth and this, that, and the other. And some of my own hang-ups based on my own trauma and challenges meant that actually launching it was really quite terrifying. There was so much that I was like, I didn't believe that I could do it. And so I didn't for a long time, or I'd do a little bit here, and then it would kind of, push back. And then it was a couple of things together that really changed that. So I then trained as a embodiment facilitator, which is then doing somatic workshops for people moving their bodies in a very particular way to get some of that stuckness unstuck.
Mm-hmm.
And as part of learning to facilitate that, I also then, it's the kind of training where you immerse yourself in it as you're learning to teach others, but to do that, you have to then go into your own stuff really deeply to be able to do that. So that really helped release a lot of the, not wanting to step up and be out there pieces I was feeling. And not long after I had certified in that particular modality, I also found a coach in a different kind of way than I'd have imagined, but who also then allowed me to really dig into that healing for myself, to be able to heal those parts that told me I couldn't, and that, gosh, how dare I launch this thing, and who am I to, and all those things that we say to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I had a particular coach who it was two of them, in fact, who worked together, and they helped me find that part of me that was hidden and to release the parts that were in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I then have started putting it out there more and more as a business, and speaking on things like this. I mean, like, gosh, a couple of years ago, someone had told me I was talking on a podcast. I'd have thought they were crazy or something. Like, I wouldn't have believed it was possible at all.
Wow. And it's so amazing. The things that we discover about ourselves when we just take the time to really tune in to our bodies, to our minds, to our hearts and souls. Like, it's amazing the amount of things that we can just let go of and heal from when we do that. And it takes courage, because I'm hearing like you've had to step into a lot of courage for yourself.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it takes courage, and it just takes the wanting to do it, knowing And I think like we all have this sense, like you called it the calling. Like I felt this calling, um, and I'm just like, well, I don't know if I want to I want to do this, but
Yes.
we all have that, that innate sense of something is there for us. I just need to step into it. And you explain through your story how we often sabotage our movements because of fear or doubting or, just the worry of things. And I love your story because in letting go and releasing all of that, you were able to allow the good stuff to come in and rejuvenate your body and give you the strength that you needed. So how has your story shaped who you are today, Sam?
Oh, massively. The there's a piece I talk about with my clients where the the challenges that you've gone through, the deeper they are, the bigger and wider is the opportunity that can come from them. And that's not easy to feel and know in the moment. I mean, it's really hard to feel and know that in the moment. But having gone through some of the big challenges I had when I was younger and into my teens and things like that, and even some bits in my 20s, and then having this disease as well that then had its own pieces. I had, I had a hysterectomy in the end from with the endometriosis. I'd lost a pregnancy as part of it. I had issues with work because of the way the disease would show up and mean that I couldn't work properly and would have challenges and have to miss work, things like that. So all of those things, those moments which at the time were so incredibly painful and hard to go through, they have given me a richness that allows me to help others, because there is nothing that somebody brings to me in a session that I can't have an empathy for and an understanding for. And I look at it that so one of the things that came out for me personally was I'd experienced challenges with love when I was growing up, an absence of it and a distance of it. And one of the things I then had uncovered with my going through my own coaching was that I'm then here to bring that for others. And the only way I'm able to bring and be the light for the biggest amount of love is to have been someone who experienced so little of it at some point. Because if all I'd ever had was an abundance of it, to be able to then be that same light for somebody else is actually harder. So all of those things, sometimes people say when you've gone through really, really tough stuff, like, oh, would you go back and change it if you could? And truly, as heartbreaking as some of those moments were, I really wouldn't, because I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't be able to have the conversations I have. I wouldn't be able to meet the amazing people that I get to speak to. I wouldn't have two beautiful girls who light me up every single day. Like all of these things, that would have looked differently. And so yeah, as much as I feel for the little me who had to go through those things and regularly tune into her in my mind and give her a cuddle and tell her that it gets to be okay in the end, it's what shaped me.
Mm. That's so beautiful. I'm just getting chills listening to your story and the explanation. And it's so true because often we have regrets or things that in our past, like, oh, I wish, this hadn't happened and stuff. But when you really look at it, the concept of how life happens for you, not to you, really comes into perspective for me through your story, because everything that you endured has shaped the outcomes that we're seeing today. And so many people are better for it because they're tapping into your resources and they're tapping into your story and they're like, okay, if you can do it, I can do it, and there's a way. And so you bring so much light into the world. Under having that understanding, but that's also part of your healing journey too, is being at a point where you can look at it and say, you know what, it happened for me to understand how to give love to the world, to my daughters, to, my relationships, all of those things. And it's a story that touches my own heart too, because I too feel that calling as well in spreading love, because that's what hurt me as a child, was not understanding and having a distorted understanding of love. And so I'm like, okay, and it's been maybe a couple of years now that I really got a clarity on, you are here to bring love into the world. And I'm just like, ooh, okay. Require a lot of change, for sure.
Yeah.
So, Sam, let me ask you, what advice would you give someone that maybe is there in that painful moment and just going, like, I don't know what to do. I'm not, maybe they're sitting in a chair at the retreat going, I don't know how to enjoy what I want because of all of this. What kind of advice would you give that person?
The very first thing I'd say is take a deep breath,
Mm.
connect with yourself, see and look for what is around you and available to you. Because quite often when we're in that state of where everything's really acute and challenging, we miss the opportunities that are available to us because we just can't see them. It becomes the proverbial wood for the trees. So taking that breath, really just centering for a moment in yourself, knowing that your body is and yourself is the longest relationship you'll ever have, and that nothing is ever permanent. Everything is always a series of open doors, right? Seeing and taking one small step to something that you can take control of, something that you can make your own, that you can have an ownership of. Because in taking that one step, you'll suddenly two more steps will appear in front of you. And it's then getting that support of somebody who has walked the kind of path before. If someone's sitting there with an endometriosis, like, reach out and speak to me and I'll help. And there's other people who do the same. Whatever is happening to you, there's somebody else in the world who's having it or had it as well. And finding somebody who's a few steps ahead of you in the journey really helps inspire in a way that nothing else can. And it is that nothing is truly permanent. There is ways through all these things. And if you're able to take those first few steps and then find that healing, find that place where you can be met, heard, and understood and held in a way that allows you to explore your contrast of things, where you and I have mentioned that love being the piece for us, and it's different for other people, but where you're able to, in that safe space, access that contrast for you, that's where you can get to head. And the other side of that is so much joy, so much love, so much amazingness. It's so beautiful of a place to be.
Mm.
And it's possible for everyone. There is not anyone I know so far who taking that step of, I just want something different, and just that belief, that moment of, I want something different and I'm going to look for whatever it is. As soon as you take that step, you're on the right path from that point, and it does get there. Sometimes it's really quick, sometimes it takes a while, but you really truly can.
Mm. Such beautiful advice. And so, Sam, what does living with purpose look like for you now?
It's so for me, I help women with this condition a lot, and other similar conditions and trauma related disease as well. I align with that every day. It's a very mission led, vision led business for me, as you can probably tell by the way I talk about it. I spending time with things that matter to me, so to be bringing that love, to also be feeling it and really being present in those moments and allowing that to happen. And yeah, keep feeling that calling, and also keep working on myself, So starting this business and doing this for others, if anything, has ramped up the work that I'm doing on myself, not slowed it down. which may sound counterintuitive, and people would think that it wouldn't have been the case. But I work on myself and my staff on a much higher level now to be able to provide that space for others. And for me, that is part of being the purpose-led, because that allows me to be more and more in the present moment in my own life, personal and professional, without any of that stuff that I carried from before, clearing those channels and opening up more and more to what is available. That is what that purpose-led life means for me, is that commitment to myself to be pointing north and keep looking forward. And it doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that life is easy. I'm certainly not skipping along every day and nothing bad happens to me. Far from it. I'm as human as the next person, and life throws its curveballs for sure. And it's having that viewpoint that those curveballs are there to teach me something, not to break me, as hard as they are. That also brings me back into that purpose-led place of, standing tall and knowing that, whatever it is that comes my way, it's meant to happen. It's there for a reason. And the other side of it is good.
Beautiful. And Sam, as we start kind of just closing out our conversation, I do have a question I ask many of my guests, one of legacy and impact. If today were your last day, what would you want to be remembered for?
Oh, what would I want to be remembered for? On a personal level, being a good mom and breaking the cycle, breaking that cycle that I'd grown up in and grown from. That my girls can go and live their legacy because I allowed them to have one to shape. And on a professional level, that I changed how this disease and similar show up for women, that it is not seen as an end but a beginning.
That's a good one. And so my final question, Sam, as we close our conversation, is if you could leave one bit of truth or maybe a word of encouragement to someone listening today who may still be trying to figure out their purpose, what would that be?
When it comes to something like purpose, especially when it's something like a calling, when it's that heart-led piece, the seeds of it have been being dropped for years. So look back and see what it is that has shaped who you are and how. Combine that with your gifts, and everybody has many of them, and that's the key, is finding more than one. So many people will be like, oh, I need to be the best person who does one thing. But the most interesting people and the purpose-led people tend to be really amazing at several things, and it's the combination of them that makes them so beautifully unique and amazing. So recognize where that is in you and what those are for you, combined with what has shaped you and what your journey has been. And open up from there to dreaming, to looking at what's possible. Literally, some of the things I've got towards this business have come through dreams and embodiment pieces I've painted into existence in a meditation. Being able to speak on podcasts and stages, that came from a dream. So paint those things into existence, and however messy or scrappy it looks at the beginning, follow that and keep getting it more and more refined, because start somewhere with what you currently have right now, and you can be so amazing at it.
Beautiful. Well, Sam, if someone is out there listening and they're like, you know what, I really want to get in connection with Sam, maybe, utilize some of your resources that you have out there, how can they do so?
So I have on my website an option to be able to book a free call with me, where we'll just discuss what exactly is going on for you right now. So that is theendocoach.co.uk, and I do work with anybody in any country because it's all done virtually. So even though I'm UK based, that's not an issue. I'm also on Instagram. I'm Sam_theEndoCoach. and I can be found on Facebook if you search for Sam Halliwell - the Endometriosis Coach, and you can get in touch with me on any of those platforms.
Well, Sam, I want to say thank you so much for sharing your heart, your story, and your light with us today. Conversations like this remind us that purpose isn't about perfection. It's about showing up and growing through the things that we go through, and trusting every step matters. Here at the Good Morning Minute and through the Empower Her Steps movement, we believe every woman has a calling worth discovering and a voice worth using. So friend, wherever you are today, remember your purpose is powerful and you're not walking alone. So until next time, keep trusting, keep rising, keep walking boldly into the life God has designed for you. I'm Angelina Mojica, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.